Welcome back to Leveraging Leadership, where we unpack the art of business leadership. I'm your host, Emily Sander, Chief of Staff turned Executive Leadership Coach. This show is all about finding your points of greatest influence and leveraging them to better serve those around you. Our guest today is Dr. Wayne Pernell, known as Dr. P, and he has a PhD in clinical psychology. He is the best-selling author of a number of books. I have 2 of them right here, which we'll get into. He's got 3, but I've read 2. And he is the president of Dynamic Leader Inc., which is a global coaching and consulting firm. And finally, he is the host of the podcast One Sharp Sword, which I had the privilege to be a guest on. And Dr. P and I had a great conversation. We definitely got into some deep, meaningful stuff, not just surface level stuff. So we decided at the end of that, hey, we should do what is known in the industry as a pod swap, and he can come on my podcast. So it's a pleasure to see your face again, Dr. P, and thank you so much for being on Leveraging Leadership.
Yay, Emily, I'm so excited to be here. It's just great to reconnect with you and then to share what we have with your audience. It's so good. It's so good.
Yes, we're going to get into a lot of good stuff. So I've picked out a few pieces that I really resonated with from the significance factor. And then I love this one, dynamic transitions. And I know you have a third one, which I believe was your first, which is choose your
Yes.
power. And I have not read that one yet, but I'm sure you can tell us about that. So
I actually have 5 books out there and I'm writing 2 more. So
okay.
so
I'm
the
way
top
behind.
3 are listed behind me. Choosing Your Power was my
Choosing
baby.
your
It was my first one. It came out a decade ago and it's still relevant. I mean, we talk about in it. I wrote it as each of my books I wrote actually to answer some questions that I was asked. And Choosing Your Power was kind of the amalgamation of about 300 women that I'd been working with. And it was in a more global coaching where most of them found themselves in kind of codependent relationships.
Oh.
And as a guy, I felt like, as a dude, I felt like it was really important to insert the male voice and say, look, we need you to show up. Your voice, do not dim your light for anybody, and your voice matters. And it turns out that book, Choosing Your Power, resonated with men and women. And in it, I talk about relationships. I talk about communication. There are some communication watchwords that I talk about, eliminating why, but, and should from your vocabulary being the top 3 of my top 10 list of things to eliminate, and how disempowering it is to be on the other end of that. So really kind of things we can go into today or another time, or your audience can come to
Pick up
learn
Choosing
more
Your
about
Power.
using your
Yeah.
power. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I pulled a lot out of the 2 books that I read. That one sounds fantastic, and thank you for writing that, because that voice definitely needs to be heard. And I was
Yes.
thinking that a lot of our listeners, they're driven, they're ambitious, they're climbing the ladder and trying to contribute in their teams in all these different ways. And there's always those moments or seconds where you kind of stop and come up for air a little bit, and you kind of look around and telescope around and say, where am I and what am I doing and why am I doing what I'm doing and what does it all mean? Which I think leads into some of the topics and themes that you really touch on in the 2 books that I read. So I was
Yes.
hoping to kind of get into some of those, which dovetails with a little bit of what you and I spoke with on your podcast, which I love that part of the conversation so much. So in the significance factor, one of the questions that I loved you asked in determining your personal values is, what do you treasure? So I was thinking we could use that as a entry into personal values, and that's kind of the bedrock for a lot of what we want to be thinking about.
That's great. I wrote, as I said, I wrote each of my books in response to questions that were asked of me over and over again. The significance factor is about how do you move from success to really, really being a person of significance in the world. And Um, One of the hardest questions to answer for any of us is, what do you treasure? Or actually, it's, what do you want? What do you want? Right? That's the hardest question. So, what I came up with was, what do you treasure? Like, if you were to plant a garden, what would you be willing to tend to that garden for? Like, what would you be willing to go out and water it and weed it, and there's enough fertilizer out there, but it's like, would you enrich the soil? Would you help your plants to grow? And so if you think about anything that you really want in your life, you could have it. Honestly, you could have it. You can't
Yeah.
think of anything that you would desire that you can't actually have.
Mm.
Right? So if you're like, oh, I'd really want it's available to you. It's different than, oh, it'd be great to have a Bentley or Rolls, and it'd be great to have. It's like, it'd be great to have, or do you truly desire it? Because if you truly desire it,
You'll
you can
make it
have
happen.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, I'm not a big sports guy, but I think, is it Scottie Pippen that's a little guy that's just amazing on the basketball court? Like,
It
there've
was,
been,
yeah.
yeah, so there are a couple, like, you don't think of little guys as being great in basketball. And at the same time, it's like, well, if that's your desire, you can have it. And so what would you really treasure that you would give a part of your resources to? And that is time and money and time all over again. And like, what would you love so much that you would help grow it? And so that's really like, when you do that, you end up giving to others in order to have this thing grow. And that's part of what
Mhm.
moves you from success to significance, is that kind of exchange.
So I want to key in on two things you said. So first of all, I think there's an interesting distinction between what do you want and what do you treasure? Because to me, what do you want is like, okay, what do you want? I want to, I want a Maserati, or I want to, get to senior vice president. I want all those things. But what do you treasure? I wouldn't say I treasure being SVP of, customer service. Treasure has a different connotation to me. So
Right.
I know you kind of use those words in a little bit of a similar way, but
No,
is there
actually, the distinction that you're making is really important, because want is actually conflated with wish.
Mm.
Oh, I wish I could have a giraffe. It's like,
Yeah.
really? Like, it's like, no, actually, I want the money to buy a giraffe. Awesome. Then what would you treasure? Well, I'd treasure, do you really treasure the corner office? Do you really treasure being senior vice president? And if so, and there are people that do, which is great.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
there for you. What are you willing to do to plant the seeds, to plant the seeds, to plant the seeds, and to help those seeds grow? And it's, there's a saying that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the next best time is today.
Yeah.
So right now, what do you treasure? Like, take an inventory. And it's not a wish list, it's a real, like,
Deep.
one of the books that's in progress as we're doing this is called Listen to the Whispers. And Listen
Mhm.
to the Whispers is about letting go of all the shoulds and all the supposed tos, and all the voices in your head that aren't yours, so that you can feel pulled from your heart rather than pushed from behind. Oh, you're supposed to go this way. No, this way. No, this way. And then you're made to feel bad, wrong, or stupid for going the wrong, quote unquote, wrong direction, versus when you feel that tug at your heart, like, oh, I paused something I really loved years ago. I want to get back to that. And when
Mm.
you bring that back, whatever it is, bring that back into your life changes, and you get this joy and happiness, and that you haven't experienced in a long time. That's part of the, what would you treasure, right?
Yes. I
So
wanna read a quote because you brought up should, and I love this quote. "We get glued onto the conveyor belt of all the stuff that we should do." And I love that quote because yes, it's like
yeah,
life will serve you up a buffet, kind of one of those like sushi places you go where there's a conveyor belt where like I should do
Right?
that and I should do that and society wants me to do that. And everyone knows when you get to this stage, you should do this. And so we have that option available. But I love the sense of instead of being pushed into something, you're literally being pulled or drawn to it. It's like something's being drawn out of you. And
Yes.
the second distinction that I really liked that you mentioned was it's not taking, it's not hustling or pushing other people down, it's giving. So when you feel that true pull and being drawn to something, you're compelled to give more of yourself. So I thought that was an interesting difference as well.
Great distinctions, great points. And thank you for highlighting them. One of the things about should, it's interesting. I'll come back to the choosing your power, and where I talked about why, but, and should, and you know, should is one of those things, and it's been misquoted. The original is from Fritz Perls, who was the founder of Gestalt psychology back in the '60s, early '60s, back in the 1900s. Right? Fritz Perls, the founder of Gestalt psychology, was the one who said that shoulds are poo, and not to should all over yourself or anyone else. And the
Yes.
whole idea of the getting on the should conveyor belt is that we've listened to the other voices of authority in our lives, and we needed to do that as kids because that's what kept us safe. That said, doing it now is the foundation for blame and shame and guilt, and it's like, you're an adult, you're in charge of your life, and you're not broken. So where, like, seriously, where do you want to run your life? Like, where
Mm.
and how? Like, what do you want to be doing if you let go of all the shoulds? Oh, I should do this. Oh, I should do that. That's great. If you don't, what happens? I feel guilty. Let go of that. What is it you really truly like? Spend an hour or two in a journal in a quiet place, just writing. These are the things that I really, really want for my life. Awesome. Once you do that, you can start to create it's almost like a new biome. You create this new environment for yourself to grow into versus being, kind of pushed down and shoved along. So
You mentioned
I'm glad you did that call out quote. That's nice.
yeah, no. And you mentioned journaling, and I think I forget which book it was, but you said there's a state of doing, which we all have to be in at certain times, but there's also a state of just being. And I think in today's world, we are doing, we are going, we are dinging, we are notifying, we are da 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 da. And very seldom are we just creating that space or biome, as you say, where I can just sit here and be and reflect. And I think that's powerful. And I've struggled with that because I'm like, okay, I know I should sit and meditate and journal and do nothing for 30 minutes, for 60 minutes. But I kind of sometimes get this impending feeling where like all these other things are pushing in. But I think that is so important just to connect with that part of us because we are we are humans and we do things, but first and foremost, we are human beings.
Correct. We need to come back to human beings versus humans doing. And most people who start meditation or start journaling feel the should of, I should be more productive. There's new research and great writing that's just come out about the power of boredom, that we are so connected that we don't even have time to be bored. And there's something to being able to daydream. Your creativity sparks and peaks because you take time to not do. Like, think of all the amazing thoughts you have when you're in the shower. You
Yeah.
can't be doing. You've got the rain coming down around you, and your mind goes, and uh, that's really important. That is part of balance. And so if you think about, oh, I don't know how to meditate, it's like, think about the state you're in when you're in a shower. You relax and your mind goes, and it's like, wow, they're incredible thoughts that come up. Let them.
The other place that I get ideas is the gym.
Uh-huh.
So I used to do like Olympic lifts, like deadlifts and squats, like heavy stuff. And when you are lifting that amount of weight, your mind cannot be in other places. It's trying to prevent you from dying, essentially. And so
Right.
all of its focus is there. But in your subconscious, you're still mulling over the different problems and the different issues that you're kind of working through. And I swear there were a number of times where I would get done with a set and boom, like literally all of a sudden, oh, there's the answer. I didn't
Yes.
have to think about or do it. It was just right there for me. And I'm like,
That's right.
wow. So I don't know if that's a form of meditation per
Absolutely.
se. I think it might be just
It
because
is.
some
It's
people
moving
sit and
meditation. It absolutely
yeah,
is.
moving
Going for a
meditation.
walk, right? Getting out in the sunshine, getting out in nature. And if you're in a big city, just get outside, feel
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
without having to do anything. Um, it was Thomas Edison that said, never go to bed without giving your subconscious a problem to work on. And
Oh,
right? That isn't that great? So it's like, oh, I really want to understand XYZ more. Cool.
yeah.
Watch what happens when you wake up. It's like, oh, new insights,
That's amazing. Yeah. Because our brain is synthesizing all of the information when we sleep.
always. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh
And you
my
have to
goodness.
give it room to do it, right?
Oh my
That's
goodness.
the
I love
power of
that. I'm doing that. I'm
yeah,
incorporating that into my routine now.
excellent.
Um,
I had an
yes.
executive I worked with years ago who had rabbit watching time. And
Whoa.
he had that in his calendar. I'm pointing to my other monitor on my desk. He had that in his calendar, and it was rabbit watching time. And what he would do was he had 20-minute uh he put in 20-minute blocks throughout the week where his office was on a higher floor and it looked out over a field. Then during that 20 minutes, he'd set a timer and he'd turn his chair around away from his desk and he would just look out at the field and he'd watch the rabbits and
Wow.
they'd jump across the field. And that was his way of just unfocusing his eyes from the computer screen, from disconnecting from gotta answer this. Oh my, phones and buzzing, and this text came in, and that's due. The problems resolve when you let your brain do the work, and you have to
Yes.
let it. So that's a big part of productivity. In terms of a productivity hack, I start with clarity. What is it you want? What is it you value? And it's actually a segue into the other book
Yeah.
called Dynamic Transitions, where I talk about values, because what you valued 20 years ago isn't what you value now. And so, being able to look at, well, what do you value? Start there. What's your vision? And what's your vitality? Values, vision, vitality are my 3 V's that I bring to my exponential success workshops that I run. And those 3 V's, like values, vision, vitality, if you ask yourself throughout the day, what are my values today? What am I working on? How am I showing my values? What vision do I have? Like, can I plan for tomorrow, for 5 years from now? Like, where where do I need to be? Who do I need to be? And vitality, how are you showing up? You choose. Oh, I'm a little, tired. It's like, are you gonna stay tired? Because you can, that's a choice. Or are you gonna like show back up? Or are you gonna take a pause to rejuvenate, to allow that and build that in? So the rabbit watching time, the shower, the weightlifting, all of that is part of building values, vision, and vitality, right?
I love your book, Dynamic Transitions, and I've used
I do
that
too.
with a number of clients because a lot of people come to me with, "Hey, Emily, I have a career transition," and they're at about, they're like kind of 40-ish as a general age
Yeah.
bracket, and they're kind of making a career transition, but they're also making a life transition where, hey, some of the things I valued in my 20s and maybe my 30s has now changed. And a lot of them kind of sense that, but they haven't really fully processed that. So it's an
Uh,
interesting thing to observe. But I love a number of the questions in your book, but the number one thing that popped out was, who am I if I'm not a fill in the blank? Who am
Exactly.
I if I'm not the director of customer success? Who am I if I'm not the CEO of this company type of thing? And like for a lot of people, that's a showstopper. That's like, whoa, slam on the brakes. I
Yeah.
don't know. I have a blank canvas in front of me.
Yeah.
So
And it's
I'm wondering
scary.
that was one of your opening questions. I'm wondering if you could talk about that.
Yeah, it's the opening question because that was the impetus for that book. Actually, I had just finished speaking on stage at the Ritz-Carlton in Southern California, and a gentleman comes up to me, and he almost it was almost like he grabbed
Lapels.
me by the lapels, and he's like, I need to talk to you. I'm like, that okay. He goes, look, I'm retiring. I'm like, that's awesome. Congratulations. He's like, no, you don't understand. He was like getting emotional. He's like, I don't know who I am if I'm not a dentist.
Yeah.
His whole identity was being the business owner as an entrepreneur, being somebody of service, being somebody who knows about medical dental, like being an expert in a field, and he's retiring. And so the question, who am I if I'm not a what? A student, a partner in a relationship, right? So people go through those transitions. A business owner, a like who am I if I'm not? And so if you think about, we all go through transitions, and it goes back to values. And the values are this: in your 20s, you want to be seen. Look at me, look how potent I am in the world, right? Potent, powerful, sexy, dynamic, all of those things. Awesome. That's what your 20s are about. And so your choices are made on those values. In your 30s, it's about stability. I got the job. And I know my expertise. I can get gig after gig after gig. It is smooth sailing. In your 40s, you start to go, okay, I need to look at legacy,
Mm,
because you've probably connected with somebody. It is likely most people in that progression will have connected with a partner. They may or may not have kids. They're also looking at what can they leave for the next generation? What mark can they leave that's a little more significant? In your 50s, you start to look at at health and adventure. It's like, I've earned it, darn it, and I want to keep my vitality. And in your 60s, it sort of brings it all together. And in your 70s, you're like, now what? And you're still like, depending on your vitality level, you're either choosing to wind down or you're choosing to enhance, right? So,
ooh,
and I've watched this. And so really think about, like, we have values that are core, what I call core versus peripheral values. And our core values are typically things like integrity and honesty, love, family, it could be faith, right? Those things don't tend to change over time. And the peripheral values are the ones that do change over time, and it's where we put our attention. So the core values are sort of the ones that drive us and keep us kind of steady, and the peripheral values are the ones that we make choices based off of. Look at me. It's like, oh, I need the latest phone or camera. Right. It's like, I want to look good. Versus, wow, I am stable. I have money that I can spend. It's like, okay, so are you investing for the future? And somewhere in there, it's like, oh, there is a future. There's the realization that there's a future. And then in your 40s, it's, oh, I I have things I can offer. I'm at a place where I can own something. And so a lot of people that have been doing the gig thing become entrepreneurs. And so
yes.
that's a big shift.
And I think too, even when you mentioned in your 20s and 30s and then the switch into your 40s, I still heard that same theme of kind of, um, like taking or, the term that came to mind was peacocking. So we kind of like strut our and shake our feathers, and
Yes.
then it switches. It kind of transitions into what can I give back? What can I contribute? What can I pay forward? Which was an interesting one as well. And as you were mentioning the core values and peripheral values, one thing that changed for me, I think, like in my early to mid 30s, was fun. So fun is a
Yes.
value, And
Yes, it is.
believe me, like in my 20s, I like tried to present like I was having a lot of fun, but I was not. And in my 30s and certainly 40s, fun is more front and center. Like, what do I enjoy? What do I get excited about? What do I want to go out and do with my day? And fun is not the only thing, but it's definitely in there where how it wasn't before.
I think it's really important to realize that you own your day. It
Good.
doesn't matter if you're working for a company, you're the one that put your calendar together. You're the one that chose to work there, so you own your day, right?
Yeah.
That ultimately what makes you powerful in the world is to accept full accountability. Like, oh, I chose to work for this company. They have mandatory meetings. I'm choosing to negotiate out of this thing that used to be mandatory, or I'm choosing to make that an insignificant part of my day, or wow, that's the key point of my day. Um, and then the other piece of the day, I put what I want on my calendar. It's just so powerful to recognize you get to choose, like, throughout your day, where do you build in fun? And your fun changes, right? As
Yeah.
from when you were a kid to where you are now, your fun changes. And so it's really important. I think the so what of all this, Emily, is that if you look back 20 years, you're not the same person. If you look back 10 years, you can go, yeah, I'm not the same person as I was then either. 5 years, 2 years, 2 weeks, yesterday. You're not the same person you were yesterday. And I think that's really important to realize, because if you go back to the what do I want, what would I really treasure, and you make that a place to go to, then it's not I want this thing. And this is a key point that people miss all the time. I want this thing isn't the destination. I want to become the person that can have this thing is the destination. And so you need to look at what values do you need to start incorporating? What decisions will you make as the person who has this thing? Right?
Mhm.
So whether that's a great car or a mansion, or you're traveling all the time, or you're living in a different location, or you have a different partner, who do you need to be to have those things? Because otherwise it's just a wish, right? And so that's why values, vision, vitality, that's why you start with the values. Well, there's this goal. Awesome. What are the values that surround that goal, and how do you envision those playing out? What are
Mhm.
all the things that go with that? And then what energy do you need to bring yourself there?
Yes. So you have a series of questions, and I'm going to paraphrase as best I can. But one of them is, who will you be and what roles will you play for whom in 20 years? And so that's
Yeah.
kind of a long range one. And then bring in, who are you becoming in the next 10 years? And then who are you becoming in the next year? And a wrapper around all of those things is the decisions you make and the choices you make right now. What would you do if you had already become those people in 20 years, in 10 years, in 1 year down the line? Make those decisions from that point of view, and it will lead you in the right path. So let me know if that's somewhere close
That's
to
exactly right.
no.
Like, whoever said that must have been brilliant. No,
You should read his book.
you
Yeah.
should read this book. Uh, there's a reason, like, I really love that book. I love dynamic transitions. The reason that I love it so much is that it does answer those questions. I got over the, am I allowed to love my own book that much? It's kind of like, is that an ego thing, or do I really love it? And it's like, if somebody else had written it, I'd still love it. And it's that the concepts are so solid that if you think about who you need to become, start that now. Don't like, you
Mhm.
don't wait to become that stuff.
Yeah.
That person that, it's like, you start making decisions based on the person you want to be, so that, I mean, time rolls. It's not like you reach a destination 3 years out, I'm going to all of a sudden be this. It's like, no, today you're going to be this so that in 3 years you're actually living that way.
Yeah.
And that is what most people miss. And if you can, if there's anything that comes out of our time together today, that's the key. That is the key, is that you start today.
And I think it was Angela Duckworth who talked about goal fusion, and she was talking to the Seattle Seahawks, which is my football team, and she was basically saying, what's your ultimate goal? And they were all like, win the Super Bowl, win a Super Bowl. And she was like, okay, that's great. What are you doing today? And she had joined one of their practices, and they're like, well, we're doing passing drills, we're doing footwork drills, and she was like, no, today you are winning the Super Bowl. And they were becoming who they needed to in order to win the Super Bowl. And so that frame of mind you could see on their faces is just like, oh, today I'm winning the Super Bowl. It just
Yes.
changes. So it kind of, when you were saying that, that reminded me of when I heard that, I'm like, oh, today I'm winning the Super Bowl. Okay,
Yeah.
let's get on it.
Yeah. So what are you doing today? Today I own a mansion. Today I drive the best car. Today I travel the world the way I want to. Today I have the most
And
amazing partner. Why? Right? You can't manifest or impose on another person. You can change you to be the most amazing partner so that you attract the most
yes.
amazing partner, right? So, who are you being today to make that happen?
And one of the questions I asked myself, not in this elegant kind of sequence that you've outlined, but I kind of got there in some kludgy way, when I decided to go from corporate to coaching practice full time was I wanted to be contributing to the people into the world in the way that I wanted, essentially. So I was kind of doing piecemeal stuff with um, direct reports, people on my team, colleagues, and helping them with those one-on-one interactions. But I'm like, Emily, that's clearly the favorite part of your day. That's clearly where you get the most meaning from. What if you woke up and you got to do that all day long? And
Yeah,
so it was contributing the way I wanted to, or maybe the to my highest potential or the optimal amount. But that was a significant factor in why I decided to put all the chips on the table to go all in on coaching. So it was part of this process you described in your book. I didn't know about it then, but it was.
yeah, good for you. And the forthcoming book, I have two. One is Creating a Culture of Caring, and the other is Listen to the Whispers. Listen to the Whispers talks about risk. Like, it's it's not easy to say, you know what, I value this so much, I'm going to shift from the stability of this
Hmm.
job job and actually go for what I want. That's a big deal. That's a
Yeah.
big deal. And the other side of that, Emily, is that, one of the things that I talk about personally is that I wake up uttering basically two things, right? So the first one is thank you, right? I begin my day in gratitude. And it's like, thank you. And I don't have to be religious to be spiritual, to be connected to, right? So it's like, I was asked once, well, who are you thanking? It's like, well, it doesn't really matter. We each have our own connection. And so allow yourself to feel connected enough to go, wow, thank you. I'm here and I'm here dot dot dot, right? And so the second thing, I may or may not say this one out loud. Thank you, I always say out loud. This one is, whom do I get to serve greatly today?
Mm,
And or how do I get to serve greatly today? Right? So it's either, wow, who's on my calendar and how am I going to show up for them? Or how do I just serve to my fullest? Right? Um, for example, you don't come to a podcast going, man, I had a rough night and don't know how I'm going to show up. And let's just get through this one. It's like,
yeah.
no, right? I choose, you choose that if you're really feeling that bad, it's not going to be a podcast. It's not serving
Mhm.
anybody. Right.
Yeah.
And so the same thing is true every time you walk through a door. Who's on the other side of that door? How do you serve them greatly? And that is a huge question. If you lived your life today, as you listen to this podcast, if you lived your life today with that question, whether it's at an office or at your home or going shopping, how am I choosing to show up for whoever's on the other side of that door? You should see me going grocery shopping. I go into a grocery store like I own it. And it's not smug or snotty. It's not like I own this place. It's not that. It's more like, wow, all right, how do I choose to connect? And it's not I'm hiding because I'm shopping. It's like I'm here to be a beacon of light and energy for anybody that chooses to see it. That's my
Wow.
choice, right? That's my choice. Be that. What if we did that in today's world? Oh my gosh,
I
right?
need to go grocery shopping with you. That sounds like an amazing experience.
It's well, it takes 2 hours, but hey, uh,
That's amazing. Those were like a quote a minute, a quote a second there, so listeners
thank
can
you.
rewind and listen to all of Dr. P's great things. But Dr. P, to round us out here, what are you working on right now? What's going on in your world?
Yeah, so we're at the point of launching this great initiative called Culture of Caring. I've been putting together content kind of quarterly, building quarterly content pieces for management. I am an elite mind state coach. I do leadership development. And so I work with people who know there's more, they ache for more, and they want to contact me because it's like, help me break through to that more thing. If they know they're bigger than the life they're leading. And so that's been what I've been doing. And I realized, wow, I really want to reach like my BHAG, my big, hairy, audacious goal is to positively impact 1 billion people's lives. That's about an eighth of the world population. And I could do that one to one. I could do that via podcast. I could do that. And I have a TEDx with 2 million views on it. And like it's happening. And to really get a great ripple effect, I wanted to impact management in corporations, organizations,
Mm.
because managers are leaders and they need to be able to communicate up and down and across. And so I've been working on this program called Culture of Caring, and I built it in quarters so that it's 12 weeks, 5 days a week of great content that comes like it's about 8 minutes at a time. And it's less than 10 minutes. You can watch a quick video and go, oh, now I'm inspired for the day. It's something to think about, right? So I'll give a topic, I'll give a story about that topic, and then I'll give an action list. And that's a great way to live your day. Is like, oh, here's this thing to think about. Here's how it relates, and this is how I can apply it. Awesome. So I did that. So 12 weeks times 5 days a week is 60 pieces of content. And then I did it for 4 quarters instead of just one
Wow.
quarter, which makes 60 pieces times four is 240 pieces of content. So there's a year's worth of content you can tap into. And I'm just so proud of it. I was part of the development of it was working with a great team. And I had this former Wall Street Journal uh, interviewer, a journalist, asking me about my content pieces. And he would do that. We went through 240 pieces of
Wow.
interviews, which were longer than 10 minutes to get the 8 to 10 minutes of content to bring to a script and presentation. So it's that's sort of the behind the scenes. I mean, what you get to do with it is to become a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better every single day. And I think of it as sort of it's like reaching a boiling point. There's the why when I talk about exponential success, it's like at some point there's this massive leap. And so if you think about hot water, water
Mhm.
is warm and then it's hot. And the difference between 211 degrees Fahrenheit and 212 degrees Fahrenheit is hot water to boiling water. It's the same 1 degree difference all the way up to that point. But when you move from 211 to 212, that 1 degree is everything in terms of turning it to boiling. And so if you think about that for your life, you build a little and you build a little and you build a little, and then all of a sudden, oh dang, it all comes together. How amazing is that? That's you doing it for yourself. And that's the idea behind this program, that as a manager, you have so much more power than you think. And there are all the questions of, what if I don't know it all? What if I want to know it all? How do I use my power? Is it positional power, or is it like really relational power? I'm just so proud of this program. It's kind of exciting.
Well, it seems like you've built up such an impressive body of work as it is, but this is kind of your boiling point or your magnum opus where it's like, okay, here's my big contribution. And so
It
I can
is.
hear the excitement in your voice and see it in your face. So
Yeah, thank you.
if people want to know more about that, know more about your books, reach out to you, where is the best place to go?
Yeah, thank you. There's a ton of free content that I offer too before you work with me. If you wanted to learn a little bit more, go to waynepernell.com. It's that simple. Just spell my name right and you'll find it. Wayne, Wayne, Pernell, Pernell.com. I've got a blog. If you look at my blog, it's every week. It's Wednesdays with Wayne, and and so you get a little bit of me in your inbox for free. If you look at if you want to do a master class, I've got a 40-minute master class, so that's available to you. It's called Powerful Presence, and it really drives you from desire, helping you to define desire, to destination. What is that outcome? What's it look like? So those are free and available on my website, and all the books are listed there. Everything I'm working on is listed there. I also have this new cool thing that I've employed. I call it my mini me. And I am using AI, where I've fed decades of content into AI, and you could ask the mini Dr. P anything,
Wow.
and you get an answer in my voice. You get like my content coming back. So I encourage you, go to waynepernell.com, go and look in the lower right corner. You'll see this little chat with the mini Dr. B. And
Wow.
it's that's kind of cool. It's creepy. It's like,
But also
wow,
kinda
like,
cool. I've never heard
yeah.
about it used that way, so that's a very creative, innovative way to use AI.
And I've
But
always said you can ask me anything, and now you can ask, like, if you're too afraid to ask me directly, and you needn't be, like, I'm pretty open and available. Um, Reach out as you wish. There's contact form, or start there, right? And
beautiful.
then to work with me, or to find out more about, like, the workshops that I do, April and October, to do one-to-one coaching, that's all available too. But you're doing this amazing coaching too, Emily, and it's like, um, one of the reasons that we're connected is the belief in the abundance. Like, it's not
Yeah.
oh, you're a coach, I can't tell you anything. It's like, of course you're a coach. And there are, like, people who are successful have coaches,
Yes.
and even coaches have coaches. And
I have a
so
team of coaches. Yes,
it's
absolutely.
why it's why we continue to be successful, is that there's this outside perspective. What can a coach offer? An outside perspective. You can't ask a fish what water is like, because the fish doesn't know, not water, right? So if you're in your own life, you don't know anything beyond what you've experienced. It might exist, maybe. That's what a coach does, like, to offer you a perspective, and to encourage you to just get a little bit more uncomfortable here, or try something that
Incredible.
you're not used to there. And um, that's what we do. And
I mean,
well,
yeah. The question here, like for coaches, is who am I if I'm not fill in the blank? And core values and self-worth is an inside job. So go find your coach, find the right one for you. But
exactly.
Dr. P, it's been an absolute pleasure. We should definitely do this again. I will
I
read
love
all of
that.
your books and we can talk about anything else you have going on. But I'm a huge supporter of you. So I love what you're doing and thank you for what you're doing. And it's been great having you on.
It's great, Emily, and I'm a big fan of yours. So glad we connected. We connected on the One Sharp Sword podcast. Really great to have been connected that way, and it's a delight to join you here. So definitely we'll be doing this again, either on my show, your show, or just informally. Really great, Emily. Thank you.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.